Let's get some analysis with Chris Kenny now, our Sky News colleague, of course, the host of the Kenny Report. Chris, great to see you. What are the implications for Australia out of what we're seeing in the United States? Whether that red wave is seen as many expect it or not, how do you see the events in the US and the midterms?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch, Kieran. Obviously, there's going to be a red wave. It's too early to tell how big it is at the moment, right? But obviously, the Republicans in their strongholds already doing well. And I think the focus here is very similar to Australian politics, of course. The Republicans have got back onto the grassroots issues, the hip pocket issues. It's the cost of living, it's border security, it's petrol prices and the like. And so I suppose in terms of base political operations, there's a lesson here, of course, for the coalition in Australia, and not that they need any reminding at the moment, just to focus on energy security, energy prices, cost of living prices, all those issues. They don't go away, these issues, and if there are problems there, it's very costly for left of centre governments when they lose control. So in some respects, that debate is playing out differently in a similar way. But I think when you talk about the US-Australia relationship, you've got to ask ourselves if Joe Biden gets a blood nose out of these midterms and we see Trump putting himself up for 2024, announcing that perhaps today week, well, what will that do for the Australian-US relationship? Will it make much difference at all? We would hope when it comes to security issues like AUKUS, it wouldn't, that we would continue our defence and security relations in very much the same light. I don't think there would be any change there. But I think when it comes to climate policy, climate and energy policy, there could be some radical changes, of course. Biden could change his focus. At the moment, of course, he's very anti-coal and he's anti-gas drilling and he's anti-pipeline. The political pressures could force him to try and ease cost pressures in the US and maybe change those positions. I suppose that could have dramatic ramifications for energy prices right around the world.
Chris, I'm going to talk about the Democratic question around Biden in a moment. I want to get your thoughts on that. But let's put these pictures up from Mar-a-Lago, Florida. There's already a largish crowd arriving there in Florida to hear from Donald Trump tonight. He's going to be speaking at some point. He will be using this wave as big or small as it is tonight. We'll wait to see, but he will launch into an attempted run at the Republican nomination again. But at the same time tonight, Chris, we've seen this really emphatic win for Ron DeSantis in Florida, a point or two better than Marco Rubio in the same state. This is someone who is extremely popular in parts of the Republican Party as well, Chris.
Yeah, and much more orthodox, right? Much more orthodox. The sort of Republican candidate who would appeal to strong American conservative voters but not have any of the barnacles that Donald Trump has. So I guess we're all expecting on Tuesday that Donald Trump's going to declare that he will run again. We will see. But you're looking at this situation where the other potential primary candidate, it could be Trump versus DeSantis. That would be a fascinating contest. And I think people who have always been sceptical of Trump, like myself, would prefer someone more orthodox like Ron DeSantis. So we'll see. So that's going to be a fascinating contest. I mean, could Trump actually say DeSantis is a great prospective president and I'll stay out of the contest? That would be better for the Republican Party. I don't think Donald Trump thinks like that. He's a me kind of a guy. I think the other interesting thing here is, and this comes into play starting tomorrow, right? The Democrats have gone through this absolute charade for the last 2 years, pretending that Joe Biden might run for a second term. He's never going to run for a second term. They just can't admit it, especially before the midterms, of course. He's just not up to the job now. And I think the fascinating dynamic between now and the next election is not who might be running for the Democrat primary. We'll get to that over the next year. But I think it's going to be pressure on Joe Biden and whether or not he can finish his term. Because there's one person whose interests are served directly if Joe Biden were to decide for medical reasons or otherwise that he needs to resign. Of course, that's Kamala Harris. She would become the first female president. I reckon that is where the debate's going to shift pretty quickly in coming days and months.
Chris Kenny, host of the Kenny Report, thanks. Great to get your thoughts today on these midterm elections.